A story of forbidden bonds, broken curses, and a love that defied the moon itself. The council chamber smelled like iron and shame. Elara stood in the center of the stone circle, her wrists bound in silver-laced rope that burned just enough to remind her she was prey now. Not pack. Not protected. Just a body waiting for judgment. The faces around her blurred, elders, warriors, witnesses, all of them silent, all of them staring at the swell beneath her torn dress like it was a disease they might catch. Her belly was small still. Maybe 4 months. But it was enough. Enough to condemn her. The High Elder's voice cut through the cold air like a blade. Elara of the Ashwood Pack, you stand accused of bearing a child without a mate bond. You have broken the oldest law. You have invited curse and chaos into our bloodline. His eyes, milky with age, fixed on her like she was already dead. Speak now. Name the father, or face the moon's justice at the rise of the next full moon. Her throat tightened. She had no name to give. The wolf who had touched her in the dark, who had whispered promises and disappeared before dawn, had no scent she could track, no face she could recall clearly. It was as if he had been a ghost. Or a lie her own mind had invented. But the baby was real. She felt it move sometimes. A flutter. A reminder that she wasn't alone, even when the world had decided she was nothing. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm so glad the moon led you to this story. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Are you Team Forgiveness or Team Vengeance? And if you haven't subscribed yet, do me a favor and hit that button right now, because this tale is about to take you somewhere you won't see coming. Trust me, you'll want to be here for every twist. Now, back to Elara. Silence stretched in the chamber. No one stepped forward. Not her brother, who stood near the back with his arms crossed and his gaze on the floor. Not her mother, who had stopped looking at her 3 weeks ago. Not the wolf she had given herself to in a moment of desperate, foolish hope. No one. The High Elder raised his hand. Then by the law of the packs you are. Wait. The voice came from the far end of the hall, low and edged with something that made the air itself hold still. Every head turned. Elara's heart slammed against her ribs. From the shadows near the throne, a figure rose. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Dressed in black and midnight blue, with silver embroidery that caught the torchlight like stars. His presence filled the room before he even took a step forward, and when he did, the crowd parted like water. The Alpha King of the North. Roman. She had only seen him once before, years ago, when he had come to the Ashwood territory for a treaty signing. He had been younger then, but no less terrifying. They said he had never taken a mate. That he was bound by some ancient vow, some prophecy that kept him alone. They said his wolf was the largest in living memory, and that he had killed 12 rogues in a single night without shifting fully. They said a lot of things. But none of them had prepared her for the way his eyes landed on her now, silver blue and unreadable, like a frozen lake that might crack beneath your feet. He stopped 3 paces away. Close enough that she could smell him. Snow and cedar and something wild she couldn't name. The High Elder bowed his head slightly, confusion flickering across his face. Your Majesty, this is a pack matter. We did not mean to trouble. I'm not troubled. Roman's gaze didn't leave Elara. His jaw was tight, his expression carved from stone. I'm here to claim responsibility. The room went silent. Elara's breath caught. You, what? The High Elder's voice faltered. Roman took 1 step closer. And then he did something that made Elara's knees nearly buckle. He leaned in, close enough that his breath brushed her ear, and whispered so only she could hear. Claim the baby as mine. Her eyes flew to his. He didn't smile. Didn't soften. But there was something in his gaze, a command, a lifeline, a trap, she couldn't tell which. Say it, he murmured, still too quiet for anyone else. Say the child is mine, and you'll live. Her lips parted, but no sound came. He pulled back slightly, his voice rising just enough for the council to hear. The child is mine. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Murmurs erupted like wildfire. The High Elder looked like he'd been struck. "Your Majesty, forgive me, but this woman is of no rank, no standing. She was not claimed before. She's claimed now." Roman's tone left no room for argument. His eyes swept the room, daring anyone to challenge him. "The child she carries is mine. She is under my protection. And anyone who speaks against her answers to me." Elara's heart was a drum, wild and uncontrollable. She didn't understand. She didn't know him. She had never even spoken to him before this moment. But he had just saved her life. Or sentenced her to something worse. The High Elder hesitated, then bowed stiffly. "As you command, Alpha King." Roman turned to Elara. His expression was still unreadable, but his hand, large, scarred, steady, extended toward her. "Come," he said simply. She stared at his hand like it was a weapon. But the alternative was death. So she took it. His fingers closed around hers, warm and firm, and something jolted through her, a spark, a hum, something her wolf stirred at for the first time in months. He led her out of the council chamber, through the sea of staring faces, past her family who wouldn't meet her eyes, past the wolves who had already written her off as dead. And as the heavy doors closed behind them, as the cold night air hit her face and the stars blinked overhead, Elara realized something terrifying. She had just been claimed by the one wolf in the realm who was forbidden to have a mate. And she had no idea why. "So, what do you think? Is Roman hiding something? Why would an Alpha King risk everything for a woman he doesn't even know?" Drop your theories in the comments below. I love reading them. And if you're already hooked, smash that subscribe button. The fortress loomed against the night sky like a beast carved from stone and ice. Elara had heard stories about the Northern Keep, how it was built into the mountains themselves, how wolves said the walls were older than memory, how the wind that howled through its towers carried voices of the dead. She had never imagined she would see it, much less enter it as a prisoner dressed up as a prize. The carriage ride had been silent. Roman sat across from her, his gaze fixed on the window, his jaw set like he was solving a problem he couldn't speak aloud. She had tried to read him, tried to find some hint of warmth or cruelty or something that would tell her what he wanted from her. But he gave her nothing. Only once did he speak, and it was a command, not a comfort. "When we arrive, you will be introduced as my intended mate. You will be given quarters in the eastern wing. You will not leave the fortress without my permission. And you will not tell anyone the truth." She had nodded, because what else could she do? Now, standing in the grand hall with torches blazing and wolves staring at her like she was a riddle they couldn't solve, Elara felt the weight of the lie settle over her like chains. A woman approached, tall, elegant, with silver-streaked hair and eyes the color of amber. She wore deep green robes embroidered with wolf sigils, and her presence commanded respect without a word. "I am Mara," she said, her voice smooth but edged with curiosity. "The king's chief advisor. Welcome to the Northern Keep, Lady Elara." Lady. The title tasted wrong. She wasn't nobility. She wasn't even pack anymore. "Thank you," Elara managed, her voice smaller than she wanted it to be. Mara's eyes flicked down to her belly, then back up. Her expression didn't change, but Elara saw the calculation there. "You must be exhausted from your journey. I'll have someone show you to your chambers." Roman stepped forward then, his hand resting briefly, almost possessively, on Elara's lower back. The touch sent a jolt through her, unexpected and too warm. "I'll take her myself," he said. Mara raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She bowed her head and stepped aside. As Roman guided Elara through the corridors, she became aware of the eyes following them. Servants paused in their work. Guards straightened. Wolves whispered behind hands, their gazes sharp and full of questions she didn't have answers to. She felt like an imposter, because she was one. They climbed a spiral staircase, the stone cold beneath her feet, and finally stopped before a heavy wooden door carved with moons and stars. Roman pushed it open, revealing a room that stole her breath. It was beautiful. A four-poster bed draped in furs. A fireplace already crackling with warmth. Windows that overlooked the mountains, where snow gleamed silver under the moonlight. A writing desk. Bookshelves. Comfort she hadn't known in months. "This is yours," Roman said, stepping inside, but keeping his distance. "You'll be safe here." She turned to face him, her arms wrapping protectively around her belly. "Why?" He stilled. "Why what? Why did you do that? Why did you claim me? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Her voice cracked, and she hated it. "I'm nobody." Something flickered in his eyes, something almost like pain. But it was gone before she could name it. "You're not nobody," he said quietly. "Not anymore." "That's not an answer." He exhaled, running a hand through his dark hair. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. "The council would have executed you. And the child." His gaze dropped to her belly, lingered there. "I couldn't let that happen." "Why not?" "You don't know whose child this is. For all you know, I don't care whose it was." His voice sharpened, and his eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath hitch. "What matters is whose it is now. And as far as this realm is concerned, that child is mine. Which means you are under my protection. Do you understand?" She swallowed hard. "I understand that you've made yourself a target for me. That people will ask questions. That? Let them ask." He stepped closer, and she caught that scent again, snow, cedar, something untamed. "I've ruled this kingdom for 10 years, Elara. I've survived assassinations, coups, and wars. I can handle gossip." Her name on his lips sent a shiver down her spine. "But you need to understand something," he continued, his tone softer now but no less serious. "There are rules here. Traditions. And there are wolves in this court who will see you as a threat. As a weakness they can exploit." His jaw tightened. "Stay close. Trust no one. And if anyone tries to hurt you, I'll come to you," she guessed. "No," his eyes flashed silver. "You'll survive long enough for me to find them." A beat of silence. Then he turned and headed for the door. "Roman." He paused, his hand on the frame. "Thank you," she whispered. "For saving me." He didn't look back. But his voice, when it came, was rough. "Don't thank me yet." And then he was gone. Elara didn't sleep that night. She lay in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling, her hand resting on the curve of her belly. The baby moved, a soft flutter, like a whisper. "You're safe now," she thought. "We're safe." But safety came with a price. And she didn't yet know what Roman would ask of her in return. The next morning, Mara arrived with breakfast and a warning. "There will be a formal introduction tonight," she said, setting a tray of bread, cheese, and tea on the table. "The court will want to meet you. To see the woman who captured the Alpha King's attention." Elara's stomach twisted. "I didn't capture anything." Mara gave her a look, sharp, knowing. "Didn't you?" Before Elara could respond, Mara continued. "You should know that Roman has never brought a woman here. Not in all the years I've served him. He's bound by a vow, one that forbids him from taking a mate. The entire realm knows this." Elara's heart sank. "Then why?" "That," Mara said, "is the question everyone is asking." She moved to the window, her gaze distant. "There are those who will see you as a political maneuver. Others will think you've bewitched him. And some," she paused, "some will believe you've broken a sacred law just by being here." "I didn't ask for this." "No," Mara turned to her, and for the first time, there was something almost like sympathy in her eyes. "But you're here now. And that makes you dangerous, whether you want to be or not." That evening, Elara was dressed in a gown of deep blue and silver colors of the north. Her hair was braided and pinned with moonstone clasps. She looked like someone else in the mirror. Someone who belonged. But when she entered the great hall on Roman's arm, the illusion shattered. The hall was filled with wolves, nobles, warriors, advisors. All of them turned to watch as Roman led her to the center of the room, his hand firm on hers. "This is Elara," Roman announced, his voice carrying over the crowd. "She is under my protection. The child she carries is mine. And anyone who questions that answers to me." Whispers erupted like wildfire. A man stepped forward, tall, with dark hair and a scar across his cheek. His eyes were cold. "Your Majesty, forgive me, but the law states that an alpha must present proof of a mate bond before claiming a child. Where is the mark? Where is the ceremony?" Roman's expression didn't change. "The bond is private. The child is not." "Private?" The man's lip curled. "Or non-existent?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Roman's wolf surfaced in his eyes, silver and lethal. "Careful, Dane." But Dane didn't back down. He turned to Elara, his gaze raking over her like she was something to be dissected. "Tell us, Lady Elara, when did the Alpha King claim you? Where? Under what moon?" Her throat went dry. She opened her mouth, but no words came. And then Roman did something that shocked the entire room. He pulled her close, his hand sliding to the back of her neck, and leaned in as if he might kiss her. Instead, he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "Trust me." And then his wolf pulsed, a wave of power so strong it rippled through the hall, and every wolf in the room felt it. Elara gasped, because for just a moment, she felt it too. A pull, a tug, something ancient and undeniable, like a thread connecting her soul to his. It shouldn't have been possible, but it was. Roman pulled back, his eyes locked on hers, and she saw the truth written there. He had felt it too. "Okay, now things are getting interesting. Did you feel that bond snap into place?" Because Roman and Elara sure did. What do you think is happening here? Drop your theories below, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. The bond shouldn't exist. Elara felt it humming beneath her skin like a second heartbeat, faint but persistent, as if something had woken inside her that had been asleep her entire life. She sat in her chambers, staring at her reflection in the mirror, her hand pressed to her chest where the strange warmth pooled. It had been 3 days since the introduction. 3 days since Roman had unleashed that pulse of power in front of the entire court, and every wolf in the room had felt it, the unmistakable resonance of a mate bond. Except it was impossible. She wasn't his mate. She couldn't be. He was bound by a vow that forbade him from claiming one, and she had been with another wolf. The father of her child was out there somewhere, nameless and faceless, and yet, why did it feel so real? A knock at the door shattered her thoughts. "Come in," she called, expecting Mara or one of the servants. Instead, Roman stepped inside. He closed the door behind him, and the air in the room shifted instantly. He looked different in the soft afternoon light, less like a king and more like a man carrying a burden too heavy to name. His jaw was tight, his silver blue eyes shadowed with something she couldn't read. "We need to talk," he said. Her pulse quickened. "About what happened in the hall. About what's happening." He crossed the room and stopped a few feet from her, close enough that she could feel the pull again, that invisible thread tugging her toward him. "You felt it, didn't you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I don't understand it. I don't understand any of this." "Neither do I." His voice was rough, almost frustrated. "I've never felt anything like that before. Not with anyone." He dragged a hand through his hair, pacing now. The bond one demonstrated was meant to be a performance. A show of power to silence the court. "But when I touched you, it was real," she finished quietly. He stopped, his gaze snapping to hers. "It shouldn't be. I'm bound by prophecy, Elara. The moon herself declared that if I claim a mate, my kingdom will fall. My bloodline will end. Everything I've built will burn." Her breath caught. "Then why did you claim me at all?" "Because I couldn't let them kill you." The words came out sharper than he intended, and he exhaled, forcing himself to steady. "I thought I could protect you without consequence. That I could give you my name, shelter you here, and keep my distance. But now there's something between us that won't let you." His silence was answer enough. Elara stood, wrapping her arms around herself. Then send me away. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be saved or claimed or, her voice broke. I don't want to be the reason your kingdom burns. Roman closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hands caught her shoulders, firm but gentle, and his eyes, his eyes, burned with something fierce and desperate. You think I'd let you go now? His voice was low, almost a growl. You think I could? You have to. I can't. The confession seemed to tear out of him. My wolf won't let me. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to keep you close, to protect you, He stopped himself, his jaw clenching. This isn't supposed to happen. But it is. And I don't know how to stop it. Tears pricked her eyes. What if the prophecy is right? What if I destroy everything you've worked for? Then we'll deal with it. His grip on her shoulders tightened slightly. Together. Before she could respond, a sharp knock rattled the door. Roman released her instantly, stepping back, his expression hardening into the mask of a king once more. Enter, he called. Mara stepped inside, her face pale. Your Majesty. Forgive the intrusion, but there's been an incident. Roman's entire body tensed. What kind of incident? A body was found in the lower courtyard. A servant. Her throat was torn out. Mara's voice was steady, but Elara could hear the tremor beneath it. The guards believe it was a rogue attack. But there's something else. What? Mara's gaze flicked to Elara, then back to Roman. There was a message carved into the stone beside her. It said, "The impure one will bring ruin. Remove her, or the pack bleeds." Elara's blood turned to ice. Roman's eyes flashed silver, his wolf rising to the surface. Double the guards on this wing. No one gets near her without my permission. And find out who left that message. Yes, Your Majesty. Mara bowed and left quickly. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elara's hands shook. They're coming for me. No, Roman's voice was steel. They're trying to scare you. There's a difference. Someone died because of me. Someone died because a coward wanted to send a message. He stepped closer again, his presence overwhelming. Listen to me, Elara. I will not let them touch you. I don't care who they are or what they think they're protecting. You're mine now. And I protect what's mine. The possessiveness in his tone sent a shiver through her, not of fear, but something far more dangerous. If you're just joining us, welcome, and wow, you picked the perfect moment to jump in. This story is about to get darker, and if you're loving it so far, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what you think is going to happen next. Seriously, I read every single one, and your theories give me life. Now, let's get back to it. That night, Elara couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the moon rise over the mountains, her hand resting on her belly. The baby was restless too, moving more than usual, as if it could sense her fear. A soft sound made her turn. Roman stood in the doorway. I told the guards to let me know if you were awake, he said quietly. I thought you might need company. She should have told him to leave. Should have kept her distance, for both their sakes. But instead, she nodded. He crossed the room and sat in the chair across from her, his long legs stretched out, his gaze fixed on the fire. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then, quietly, she asked, Do you regret it? Claiming me? He was silent for a long moment. Then, no. Even though it's put you in danger? I've been in danger my entire life, Elara. That's nothing new. He turned to look at her, and something in his expression softened. But you didn't ask for any of this. And I'm sorry for that. You saved my life. And threw you into a different kind of prison. She shook her head. It's not a prison. Not compared to what I left behind. His gaze dropped to her belly. The father. Do you want to find him? The question surprised her. I don't even know who he is. I only remember pieces. A voice. A touch. But no face. No scent I can track. She swallowed hard. It's like he was erased from my memory. Roman's eyes narrowed. That's not natural. I know. She looked down at her hands. I think someone did something to me. Some kind of magic or curse. Because everything about that night feels wrong. Like it wasn't supposed to happen, but it did anyway. Roman leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his gaze intense. If someone cursed you, we'll find out who. And we'll break it. Why do you care so much? The question hung in the air between them, heavy and raw. Roman's jaw tightened. Because when I look at you, I see someone the world tried to destroy. And you're still standing. His voice dropped. That's not weakness, Elara. That's strength. And I'd be a fool not to protect it. Her heart clenched. Before she could respond, a howl split the night long, mournful, and far too close. Roman was on his feet instantly, his body tense, his eyes blazing silver. Another howl answered. Then another. Stay here, he commanded, already moving toward the door. What's happening? Rogues. His voice was grim. And they're inside the walls. He was gone before she could stop him. Elara stood frozen, her heart pounding, as the howls grew louder and closer. And then she heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold. A low, guttural growl, right outside her door. Elara's breath froze in her lungs. The growl came again, low, wet, and hungry. She could hear claws scraping against the wooden door, slow and deliberate, like whatever was on the other side was savoring the moment before it struck. Her hands moved instinctively to her belly, protective, trembling. She scanned the room for a weapon, anything, but found only books, furniture, and the dying embers of the fire. Think. The door shuddered. Once. Twice. Then it exploded inward. A massive wolf, mottled gray and black, with eyes like sulfur, lunged into the room. Foam dripped from its jaws, and its ribs jutted out beneath matted fur. A rogue. Feral. Starving. Elara stumbled backward, her scream trapped in her throat. The wolf's gaze locked onto her belly, and its lips curled back in a snarl. It pounced. Elara threw herself to the side, crashing into the desk as the rogue's claws raked the air where she'd just been. Pain shot through her shoulder, but adrenaline drowned it out. She grabbed the nearest thing, a heavy candlestick, and swung it wildly. It connected with the wolf's skull with a sickening crack. The rogue yelped and staggered, shaking its head. But it didn't retreat. It turned back to her, eyes blazing with rage now, and crouched to spring again. Elara raised the candlestick, knowing it wouldn't be enough. This is it. I'm going to die. Then a roar shook the entire room. A blur of black and silver slammed into the rogue mid-leap, sending it crashing into the wall with bone-shattering force. Elara's vision blurred, but she saw him, Roman, shifted into his wolf form, massive and terrifying, his fur dark as midnight and his eyes glowing like molten silver. He was enormous, easily twice the size of the rogue, with muscles that rippled beneath his coat like coiled steel. The rogue scrambled to its feet, snarling, but Roman was already on it. His jaws closed around the rogue's throat, and with one violent twist, it was over. The body hit the floor with a dull thud. Silence. Roman shifted back in a ripple of power, his human form emerging as he straightened, blood on his hands and fury in his eyes. He didn't look at the dead wolf. He looked at her. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, barely controlled. Elara shook her head, though her entire body was trembling. I'm fine. The baby? He crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms, his hands moving over her shoulders, her arms, checking for injuries with a desperation that stole her breath. You're bleeding, he said, his voice tight as his fingers brushed the torn fabric at her shoulder where the rogue's claws had grazed her. It's just a scratch. It's not just anything. His eyes blazed as he looked down at her, and for the first time, she saw the raw emotion beneath the control: fear, rage, and something else. Something that looked dangerously like possession. If I had been even a moment later. But you weren't. Her voice was steadier than she felt. You saved me. His jaw clenched and he pulled her closer, his forehead dropping to rest against hers. She could feel his heart pounding, could smell the wildness still clinging to his skin. I can't keep you safe if they're getting inside the walls, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Someone let them in. Someone in this fortress wants you dead. The words settled over her like ice. By dawn, the fortress was in chaos. 3 more rogues had been found and killed within the walls. 2 guards were dead. And the entire court was demanding answers. Roman called an emergency council meeting in the throne room. Elara wasn't supposed to attend, but he insisted she stay close, positioning her in a chair to his right, a seat traditionally reserved for a queen. The message was clear. The council members filed in Mara, Dane, and several others Elara didn't recognize. Their faces ranged from concern to openly hostile as their eyes landed on her. Dane spoke first, his voice cold. Your Majesty, with all due respect, the attacks started the moment she arrived. The message was clear. Remove her and the bloodshed stops. The bloodshed stops when I find the traitor who let the rogues inside, Roman countered, his tone like sharpened steel. And when I do, they'll beg for the mercy I won't give them. You're blinded by, Dane's eyes flicked to Elara with disgust. Whatever hold she has on you. The prophecy warned us. An unclaimed mate would bring ruin. And here we are, under attack, because you decided to shelter a woman carrying a bastard child. The room went deathly silent. Roman stood slowly, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. His wolf was right there, barely leashed, and every wolf in the room felt it. Say that again, Roman said quietly. I want to make sure I heard you correctly before I rip your tongue out. Dane paled but held his ground. The pack comes first, Roman. You know that. You've always known that. And right now, she's a threat to everything we've built. No, Roman's voice was soft, lethal. Right now, you're the threat. Because you're questioning my authority in front of my council. And if you do it again, I'll show you exactly what happens to wolves who forget their place. Okay, can we just take a moment to appreciate how protective Roman is? Like, this man is ready to go to war for Elara and that baby, and I am here for it. Drop a comment if you're Team Roman, and don't forget to subscribe because this story is about to spiral in ways you won't believe. Now let's get back to the drama. After the meeting, Mara pulled Elara aside in the corridor. You need to be careful, she said, her voice low. Dane isn't the only one who feels that way. There are whispers throughout the pack. Some believe you've cursed the Alpha King. Others think you're using dark magic to bind him to you. Elara's stomach twisted. I haven't done anything. I know. Mara's expression softened slightly. But perception is everything in this world. And right now, you're seen as a threat. She hesitated. There's something else. The attacks weren't random. The rogues were sent. Someone paid them to get inside. Who? I don't know yet. But whoever it is, they're willing to burn this kingdom down to get to you. Mara's gaze was steady. You need to ask yourself why. What is it about you or that child that terrifies them so much? Elara had no answer. But that night, as she lay in a new room with twice as many guards posted outside, she felt the baby move again. Stronger this time. Almost purposeful. She placed her hand on her belly and closed her eyes. And for just a moment, she felt something else. A pulse of power. Faint, but unmistakable. Coming from the child. The next morning, Roman took her to a place she hadn't seen yet, a private library deep within the fortress, filled with ancient texts and scrolls that smelled of dust and secrets. I need to show you something, he said, pulling a leather-bound book from a high shelf. The cover was unmarked, but when he opened it, Elara saw pages filled with faded writing and intricate drawings. This is the Book of Bloodlines, Roman explained. It records every prophecy, every curse, every binding vow tied to the royal line. He turned to a specific page and pointed. This is mine. Elara leaned closer and read. The last king shall rule alone, bound by moon and blood. Should he claim a mate, the kingdom shall fall, and the bloodline shall end in fire and ash. Only through sacrifice shall the curse be broken. Her heart sank. So it's true. If you claim a mate, everything ends, he finished grimly. That's why I never intended to. Why I've kept my distance from everyone. His gaze lifted to hers. Until you. Then why take the risk? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because when I look at you, the prophecy doesn't matter. My wolf doesn't care about curses or kingdoms. He only cares about you. His voice roughened. And I'm starting to think he's not wrong. Elara's breath hitched. Roman. He turned another page and his expression darkened. But there's more. Look at this. She followed his finger to another passage. The child of no name shall carry the blood of 2 lines, one lost, one forbidden. Through them, the moon shall choose a new path, and the old laws shall break or bind anew. Elara's blood turned cold. The child of no name. That's your baby, Roman said quietly. Elara, I think your child isn't just any child. I think they're part of a prophecy. One that predates mine. She shook her head, backing away. No, that's impossible. I don't come from any special bloodline. I'm nobody. Are you sure? His eyes searched hers. Because everything about this feels orchestrated. The curse that hid the father's identity. The timing of your pregnancy. The way the bond snapped into place between us the moment I claimed you. He stepped closer. What if you were never meant to remember the father? What if the moon herself arranged this? Elara's mind spun. But why? Why me? That, Roman said, his voice grim, is what we need to find out. Before whoever sent those rogues tries again. That night, Elara woke to the sound of singing. Soft, haunting, and impossibly beautiful. She rose from bed and followed it, her feet moving as if guided by something beyond her control. The guards were slumped against the walls, asleep, no, unconscious. Magic. The singing led her down the spiral staircase, through the silent halls, and out into the moonlit courtyard. A woman stood in the center, cloaked in silver, her face hidden in shadow. Elara, the woman said, her voice echoing. The one who should not exist. Elara's heart pounded. Who are you? The woman lowered her hood, revealing a face that was ageless and otherworldly, with eyes like liquid starlight. I am the moon's voice, she said. And I have come to tell you the truth. What truth? The woman smiled, but it wasn't kind. That the child you carry was never meant to be born. That you were cursed as a child so your true mate would never find you. And that by claiming you, the Alpha King has triggered the breaking of both curses. Elara stumbled backward. What are you saying? I'm saying, the woman said, her voice ringing with power, that Roman is your true mate. That the child you carry is his fated heir. And that the wolf who touched you in the dark was no wolf at all. Then what was he? The woman's smile widened. A god. Sent to plant a seed that would break the world. Wait. What? A god? The child is Roman's fated heir even though he's not the biological father? This changes everything. Drop your reactions in the comments, I need to know what you're thinking. Elara's world tilted. A god. Her voice came out strangled, disbelieving. That's impossible. The gods haven't walked among us for centuries. They abandoned the wolves when your kind broke the sacred covenant, the moon's voice interrupted, her starlight eyes gleaming with ancient knowledge. Yes, but the moon never abandoned you, child. She has been waiting, watching. And when the time came, she sent one of her servants to set the prophecy in motion. By raping me? The word tasted like ash. By taking my memories and leaving me with a child that would get me killed? The woman's expression didn't change. By giving you the one thing that would bring you to the Alpha King. The gods do not think as mortals do, Elara. They see the threads of fate, not the pain of a single moment. I don't care about fate. Elara's voice rose, trembling with fury and fear. I care that I was used. That my body was violated. That I almost died because of whatever game the moon is playing. And yet you live. The moon's voice stepped closer, and the temperature dropped until Elara could see her breath misting in the air. You live because Roman claimed you. Because his wolf recognized what his mind could not yet accept, that you are his true mate. That the child you carry, though not of his blood, is of his destiny. Elara shook her head, backing away. You're saying the baby is somehow his, even though the child carries the blood of two worlds, the woman said. Divine and mortal. Wolf and moon. And when it is born, it will have the power to break the curse that binds the Alpha King, or fulfill the prophecy that destroys him. Her gaze sharpened. The choice will be yours. What choice? To trust him, or to run? The moon's voice began to fade, her form dissolving into silver mist. But know this, Elara of no pack, the wolves who hunt you do not fear the child. They fear what the child represents. The end of the old order. The rise of something new. And they will kill you both before they allow that to happen. Wait. Elara lunged forward, but her hands passed through empty air. Tell me how to stop them. Tell me what to do. The woman's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. The truth will break you both before it saves you. When the time comes, you must choose, the lie that protects him or the truth that frees you both. Then she was gone. Elara stood alone in the courtyard, her heart hammering, her mind reeling. Behind her, a low growl rumbled. She spun around. Roman stood at the entrance to the courtyard, half-shifted, his eyes blazing silver, his chest heaving. The guards were beginning to stir, groaning as they woke from whatever enchantment had taken them. What the hell are you doing out here? His voice was rough, edged with panic and fury. Do you have any idea how dangerous? She was here. Elara's voice shook. The moon's voice. She told me everything. Roman went still. What did she tell you? Elara opened her mouth, then closed it. Because how could she explain? How could she tell him that the child she carried was never meant to exist, that a god had violated her to set a prophecy in motion, that their bond was real but built on a foundation of lies and divine manipulation? Elara. Roman closed the distance between them, his hands gripping her arms. What did she say? She said. Elara's voice broke. She said the child is yours. Not by blood, but by fate. That you're my true mate. That we were both cursed to never find each other, and claiming the baby broke both curses. The silence that followed was deafening. Roman's grip on her arms tightened, then loosened. He stepped back, his expression unreadable. That's impossible. That's what I said. I would have known. I would have felt it if you were my mate. The bond doesn't just appear out of nowhere. Unless someone hid it. Elara's eyes burned with unshed tears. She said I was cursed as a child so my true mate would never recognize me. And you were bound by prophecy to never claim a mate. But when you claimed the baby, when you called it yours, you broke both spells. Roman ran a hand through his hair, his wolf pacing beneath his skin. This doesn't make sense. If we're true mates, then why? He stopped, his eyes widening. The pull. The bond one felt when I touched you in the council hall. I thought it was just a performance, but it was real, Elara whispered. We both felt it. He stared at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw fear in his eyes. Not of rogues or assassins or prophecies. Fear of what this meant for both of them. If this is true, he said slowly, then the prophecy about my kingdom falling might have been a lie. Or a test. Elara stepped closer, her voice urgent. The moon's voice said the child will either break your curse or fulfill your prophecy. That the choice is mine. What choice? I don't know. She didn't tell me. Frustration bled into her voice. She just said the truth would break us before it saves us. Roman was silent for a long moment. Then he cupped her face in his hands, his touch achingly gentle. Then we face it together, he said. Whatever the truth is. Whatever the cost. You're not alone in this anymore, Elara. Do you understand me? You're mine. And I'm yours. Curse or no curse, prophecy or no prophecy, I'm not letting you go. Tears spilled down her cheeks. What if I destroy everything you've built? Then we'll build something new. His thumb brushed away her tears. I spent 10 years ruling alone because I thought I had to. Because I believed the prophecy more than I believed in myself. His voice dropped to a rough whisper. But the moment I saw you in that council chamber, something in me knew. My wolf knew. And I've been fighting it ever since because I was afraid. Of what? Of this. His forehead touched hers. Of feeling something this powerful. Of needing someone this much. Of finally understanding what it means to have something worth dying for. Her breath hitched. Roman. I love you. The words came out raw, unguarded. I don't know how or when it happened. Maybe it was always there, waiting for the curse to break. But it's real, Elara. And I'm done pretending it's not. Okay, I need you all to pause for a second, because Roman just said the L word and I am emotional. This man went from cold and distant to full-on "you're mine and I love you," and honestly, we love to see it. Drop a heart emoji in the comments if you're feeling this moment, and make sure you're subscribed because we're only halfway through and things are about to get wild. Alright, back to the story. Elara didn't have words. So she kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and messy and full of everything she'd been holding back, fear and hope and a longing so deep it ached. Roman's arms came around her, pulling her flush against him, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt safe. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Roman pressed his lips to her forehead. We need to figure out who's trying to kill you, he said. And why? Because if the moon's voice is right, and the child represents the end of the old order, then someone very powerful wants to stop that from happening. Dane, Elara said immediately. He's been against me from the beginning. He's too obvious. Roman's jaw tightened. Whoever's behind this is smarter than Dane. They're playing a longer game. Then who? Before Roman could answer, a scream tore through the night. They both spun toward the sound, coming from inside the fortress. Roman shifted instantly, his wolf form erupting in a blur of power, and Elara ran after him, her heart in her throat. They burst into the main hall to find chaos. Blood. Bodies. Guards fighting against wolves that had somehow gotten inside again. But these weren't rogues. They were too organized, too skilled. Assassins. Roman tore into them with lethal precision, his jaws snapping, his claws ripping. Elara pressed herself against the wall, her hands protecting her belly, her eyes searching for an escape route. Then she saw her. Mara. Standing at the top of the staircase, her eyes glowing with magic, her hands raised as she chanted in a language Elara didn't recognize. And the assassins were listening to her. Mara. Elara's voice cracked with disbelief. The older woman's gaze snapped to her, and something like regret flickered across her face. I'm sorry, child, Mara said quietly. But the old order must be preserved. Your child cannot be allowed to live. Roman's roar shook the entire hall as he shifted back, blood on his skin, fury in his eyes. You, he snarled. You've been the traitor this entire time. Mara smiled sadly. Not a traitor, my king. A protector. The prophecy is clear. If that child is born, your kingdom falls. And I have served your line for too long to let that happen. By trying to kill an innocent woman? An innocent child. By doing what you could not. Mara's voice hardened. You're blinded by love, Roman. It's made you weak. And weakness in a king is death for his people. Roman's wolf surged forward, but Mara raised her hand, and a wall of silver light slammed into him, sending him crashing backward. I'm sorry, she said again, turning to the assassins. Kill the woman. Leave the king alive. He'll forgive me in time. The assassins moved as one, converging on Elara. She had nowhere to run. No weapon. No wolf to shift into. But as they closed in, something inside her, something connected to the child, pulsed. A wave of pure, blinding light erupted from her belly, slamming into the assassins and sending them flying across the hall. They hit the walls with sickening cracks and didn't get up. Silence. Elara stared at her hands, trembling, her mind unable to process what had just happened. The baby had protected them. Mara's eyes widened with something like awe. Impossible. The child shouldn't have power yet. It's not even born. Roman was on her in a heartbeat, his hand around her throat, slamming her against the wall. Give me one reason not to kill you right now, he growled. Mara smiled through the pain. Because I'm not the only one, Roman. There are others. Wolves in your court, in your pack, who believe as I do. Kill me and they'll only grow stronger. Then I'll kill them too. And prove them right? That you've been compromised? That you'd burn your kingdom for one woman. Mara's voice was strained but defiant. You're already fulfilling the prophecy, my king. Can't you see that? Roman's hand tightened. Stop. Elara's voice cut through the rage. Roman turned to her, his eyes wild, and she stepped forward, her hand still glowing faintly with the child's power. She's right, Elara said quietly. Killing her won't solve anything. But answers will. She looked at Mara, her gaze steady despite the fear coursing through her. Tell me what you know about this child. Tell me what you're really afraid of. Mara laughed bitterly. You want the truth? Fine. That child is an abomination. A hybrid of divine and mortal blood. When it's born, it will have the power to reshape the laws of our world. To break every bond, every vow, every prophecy that keeps our realm in balance. Her eyes blazed. It will be a god among wolves. And gods do not bow to kings. Elara's blood ran cold. Because deep down, she knew Mara was right. And she had no idea what that meant for any of them. Roman threw Mara into the dungeons himself. Elara watched from the corridor as he locked the cell, his movements sharp with barely restrained violence. When he turned back to her, his eyes were still blazing silver, his wolf too close to the surface. She's lucky I don't rip her apart, he growled. She was trying to protect you, Elara said quietly. In her own twisted way. By trying to murder my mate and child? Roman's voice was cold, lethal. That's not protection. That's treason. The word mate settled over Elara like a brand. Real now. Undeniable. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a countdown to something terrible. They climbed the stairs in silence, exhaustion weighing on both of them. It was nearly dawn, and the fortress was in chaos, servants cleaning blood from the floors, guards interrogating anyone who might have been complicit with Mara, wolves whispering in corners about what they'd witnessed. The woman who shouldn't exist, glowing with divine power. The Alpha King, claiming her as his mate despite the prophecy. The child that could reshape their world. When they reached Elara's chambers, Roman stopped at the doorway. I'm staying with you tonight. It wasn't a question. Elara nodded, too tired to argue, too scared to be alone. He locked the door behind them and checked every window, every shadow, his wolf prowling beneath his skin. Only when he was satisfied did he finally exhale and turn to her. Let me see your shoulder, he said. She'd forgotten about the scratch from the rogue. It had stopped bleeding hours ago, but when she pulled back her sleeve, Roman's expression darkened at the sight of the torn skin. He crossed to the basin, dampened a cloth, and returned to her. His touch was impossibly gentle as he cleaned the wound, his jaw tight with suppressed emotion. I should have been faster, he said quietly. You saved my life. Again. I almost lost you. Again. His eyes lifted to hers, and the raw vulnerability there made her chest ache. I can't keep doing this, Elara. I can't keep watching you almost die and pretending I'm fine. Then what do you want to do? Lock you in a tower where no one can touch you. His voice was rough. But I know you'd hate me for it. I would. She reached up and cupped his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. We'll figure this out. Together. Like you said. But even as she said it, she felt the doubt creeping in. Because Mara's words had planted a seed of fear she couldn't shake. When it's born, it will have the power to reshape the laws of our world. It will be a god among wolves. And gods do not bow to kings. What if the child did destroy everything Roman had built? What if loving her truly was his downfall? What if she was the weapon that would end him? The nightmares came that night. Elara dreamed of fire, of the fortress burning, wolves screaming, and Roman standing in the center of it, all with dead eyes and blood on his hands. She saw herself holding the baby, a child with eyes like starlight, and everywhere they went, destruction followed. She woke with a gasp, her heart hammering. Roman was beside her instantly, his arms coming around her. "It's okay. You're safe. I've got you." But she wasn't safe. None of them were. "I need to leave," she whispered. Roman went rigid. "What?" "I need to go before it's too late." "Before the prophecy?" No, his voice was iron. "Absolutely not." "Roman, listen to me." No, he pulled back, his hands gripping her shoulders, his eyes blazing. "You're not running. You're not leaving. I don't care what Mara said. I don't care what the prophecy says. You're staying here where I can protect you. What if I'm the one you need protection from?" Her voice broke. "What if loving me destroys you? Then I'll burn." His words were fierce, absolute. "I'd rather have you and lose everything than keep my kingdom and lose you. Do you understand? You're not a curse, Elara. You're the only thing in this world that makes sense anymore." Tears streamed down her face. "But the child is ours. Destiny, fate, divine blood, I don't care. That child is ours, and we're going to protect it together." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm not letting you go. Not now. Not ever." She wanted to believe him. Gods, she wanted to believe him so badly. But the fear wouldn't let her. The next morning brought worse news. Dane called for an emergency council meeting, and this time, half the court showed up with weapons. Roman stood before his throne, his expression carved from stone, as Dane presented his case. "The attacks have escalated," Dane said, his voice carrying through the hall. 3 guards dead. A trusted advisor imprisoned. And all of it centers around her. His gaze cut to Elara, who stood at Roman's side despite every instinct screaming at her to hide. "The prophecy warned us. An unclaimed mate would bring ruin. And now we have proof." "She's not unclaimed," Roman said coldly. "She's mine." "Then you've doomed us all." Dane's voice rose. "The child she carries is an abomination. Half divine, half wolf, it shouldn't exist. And when it's born, it will tear our world apart." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "If you're feeling anxious right now, you're not alone. I'm stressed for them. This is the moment where everything hangs in the balance, and I need to know, do you think Elara should stay and fight or leave to protect Roman?" Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. All right, let's keep going. Roman's wolf surfaced, his eyes blazing silver. "Choose your next words carefully, Dane, because they might be your last." But Dane didn't back down. "I'm not alone in this. Half the court agrees with me. Half the pack." He turned to the crowd. "How many of you have lost someone to these attacks? How many of you are willing to lose more because our king can't see past his obsession?" Wolves began to step forward, one by one, until nearly half the room stood with Dane. Elara's heart sank. Roman's expression didn't change, but she felt the devastation radiating from him. His pack, the wolves he'd bled for, fought for, ruled for, was splitting in two. Because of her. "I see," Roman said quietly. Too quietly. "So this is a coup." "This is survival," Dane corrected. "Give her up, Roman. Send her away. Let the child be dealt with, and we can go back to." "Dealt with?" Roman's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "You mean murdered?" Dane didn't flinch. "If that's what it takes." The room erupted. Wolves shouting, growling, shifting. Lines being drawn. Loyalties fracturing. And in the center of it all, Elara felt the baby move. Strong. Insistent. Almost like it was trying to tell her something. Then the doors to the throne room burst open. A messenger stumbled in, his face pale, his clothes torn and bloodied. "Your Majesty," he gasped. "The southern border, it's under attack." "Not rogues. An army." Roman's blood turned to ice. "What army?" "We don't know. They appeared out of nowhere. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. The messenger's voice shook. They're demanding we hand over the woman carrying the divine child, or they'll raise every settlement to the ground. Silence. Then chaos. Wolves shouting, panicking, demanding answers. Dane's voice rose above the rest. You see? This is what she's brought upon us. War. Destruction. Everything the prophecy warned. Roman's eyes cut to Elara, and in that moment, she saw his world crumbling. His kingdom was fracturing. An army was at his borders. And the woman he loved was the cause of all of it. She made her decision. I'll go, she said quietly. What? Roman spun to face her. I'll go to them. I'll surrender. If it stops the war, if it saves your pack. No, Roman's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Absolutely not. Roman, this is the only way. It's not. His voice was raw, desperate. They'll kill you. They'll kill the baby. I won't let that happen. You might not have a choice. Tears burned her eyes. Your pack is turning against you. An army is destroying your borders. How long before you have to choose between me and your kingdom? I already chose you. And it's tearing you apart. Her voice broke. I can see it, Roman. I can see what loving me is costing you. And I won't be the reason you lose everything. You're not losing me anything. His grip tightened, his eyes wild. You're giving me everything. A mate. A family. A reason to fight beyond duty and prophecy and all the bullshit I've been drowning in for 10 years. Don't you see? You didn't destroy my world, Elara. You saved it. She wanted to believe him. But the messenger's words echoed in her mind. Hand over the woman carrying the divine child, or we'll raise every settlement to the ground. Who's leading the army? She asked quietly. The messenger swallowed hard. They won't say. But the scouts saw a banner. A silver moon on black. And the soldiers, they're not just wolves, Your Majesty. They're something else. Something ancient. Elara's blood ran cold. The moon's voice had said the gods abandoned the wolves centuries ago. But what if they'd come back? What if they wanted their child returned? That night, as Roman coordinated defenses and rallied his loyalists, Elara stood at the window of her chambers and stared at the moon. It was full, bright, almost mocking. Why, she whispered to the sky. Why did you do this to me? Why did you give me this child if it was only going to bring pain? The moon didn't answer. But the baby did. It kicked. Hard. And then Elara felt something she'd never felt before, a warmth spreading through her chest, like sunlight breaking through clouds. And a voice. Not words, exactly. But a feeling. A certainty. Trust. The baby was telling her to trust. But trust what? Trust whom? The door opened behind her, and she turned to find Roman standing there, exhausted, blood still on his hands from training his soldiers. We can hold them off for a while, he said. But if they're truly an army of ancients, I don't know if we can win. Then we don't fight, Elara said quietly. What? We don't fight. She crossed to him, her hand resting on his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath. We find another way. There is no other way, Elara. They want you dead. They want the baby. The baby wants us to trust, she interrupted. Roman stared at her. What? I felt it. Just now. The baby, it's trying to tell us something. She looked up at him, her eyes fierce despite the fear. The moon's voice said I'd have to choose. The lie that protects you or the truth that frees us both. I think the truth is the answer. What truth? That the child isn't a weapon. It's a bridge. Her voice grew stronger. Between divine and mortal. Between the old laws and the new. That's what they're afraid of. Not destruction. Change. Roman's eyes searched hers. And how do we show them that? I don't know yet. She pressed her hand to her belly, feeling the child's steady heartbeat. But we have to try. Because if we don't, everyone loses. Roman was silent for a long moment. Then he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her deep, desperate, full of everything he couldn't say. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. Then we face them together, he said. And we show them that prophecies don't own us. We do. But even as he said it, a howl rose from the southern border. Long, mournful, ancient. The army was coming, and they were running out of time. This is it. The darkest hour. The pack is divided. An ancient army is at the gates, and Elara and Roman are out of options. But here's the thing, sometimes the darkest hour is right before the dawn. Drop a comment telling me what you would do in Elara's position. And smash that subscribe button. The war horn sounded at dawn. Elara woke to the deep, resonant blast that shook the fortress walls, and her first thought was, it's too soon. Roman was already gone from beside her, likely on the battlements coordinating defenses. She dressed quickly in the practical clothes Mara had once provided, before her betrayal, and made her way through the corridors. Everywhere, wolves moved with military precision. Warriors checking weapons. Healers preparing supplies. Families being evacuated to the inner chambers. A kingdom preparing for war. Because of her. She found Roman on the northern wall, his silhouette dark against the rising sun. When she reached him, her breath caught at the sight beyond the fortress. The army stretched across the valley like a living shadow, thousands of warriors in silver armor that gleamed like moonlight. Their banners snapped in the wind, a silver moon on black. And at the center, mounted on horses that seemed too perfect, too ethereal to be real, were figures cloaked in white. The ancients, Roman said quietly, his voice tight. The moon's servants. I thought they were legend. So did I. Elara's hand moved protectively to her belly. The baby was active, restless, as if it could sense what was coming. A single rider broke from the army, approaching under a white flag. Roman gestured to his guards, and they opened the gates just enough to allow the emissary through. The figure dismounted gracefully, a woman with silver hair that floated as if underwater and eyes that glowed with pale light. She was beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful, cold, perfect, deadly. I am Selene, she announced, her voice carrying across the courtyard with preternatural clarity. Speaker for the Moon's Council. We have come for the child. Roman stepped forward, every inch the Alpha King. The child is under my protection. You'll have to go through me first. Selene's gaze swept over him with something like pity. Alpha King, you have no idea what you're protecting. That child is an abomination, a violation of the sacred laws that keep our world separate. Divine blood was never meant to mix with mortal. Then why did your gods allow it to happen? Elara's voice rang out, surprising even herself. Selene's glowing eyes fixed on her. You dare question the divine? I dare question why I was cursed, violated, and hunted for carrying a child I never asked for. Elara descended the steps, Roman immediately at her side. If the gods didn't want this child to exist, why not stop it before it began? Why curse me so I couldn't find my true mate, only to punish me when their own servant planted this life inside me? For the first time, Selene's expression flickered surprise, perhaps, or uncertainty. You know, Elara continued, her voice stronger now. You know this was orchestrated. The moon's voice told me herself. This child was meant to break curses, to bridge worlds. So why are you really here? What are you truly afraid of? Selene was silent for a long moment. Then, we are afraid of chaos. The old laws exist for a reason, mortal. Without them, our world would tear itself apart. Gods and wolves were separated after the last war because together, they nearly destroyed everything. This child, her gaze dropped to Elara's belly, carries the power to undo that separation, to open doors that should remain closed. Or, Roman said quietly, to heal old wounds. Selene's eyes snapped to his. You would risk your kingdom on that possibility? I would risk everything for her. Roman's hand found Elara's, their fingers intertwining. Because that's what love is. And maybe that's what your gods have forgotten. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Selene's expression hardened. Then you leave us no choice. Surrender the woman and child, or we will take them by force. You have until sunset to decide. She mounted her horse and rode back toward the army without waiting for a response. The war council convened within the hour. Dane and his faction stood on one side of the room, Roman's loyalists on the other. The division was painful, visceral. "We should give her up," Dane said immediately. "It's the only way to avoid slaughter." "Over my dead body," Roman growled. "That can be arranged." Dane's eyes flashed. "You're not thinking clearly, Roman. You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. If we fight, we lose. That army is ancient, divine, immortal. We're just wolves. Just wolves." One of Roman's commanders, a scarred warrior named Ethan, stepped forward. "We're the Northern Pack. We've survived invasions, plagues, and civil wars. We don't surrender because someone threatens us." "This isn't about pride," another voice called out. "This is about survival. They're not asking for much, just one woman and an unborn child." "Is that worth all our lives?" "Yes." Roman's voice cut through the argument like a blade. "Because if we give them up, we prove that our lives, our bonds, our love means nothing in the face of power. And I refuse to rule a kingdom built on that cowardice." "Okay, can we just appreciate Roman for a second? This man is literally willing to go to war rather than betray the woman he loves. If that's not true mate energy, I don't know what is. Drop a comment telling me if your team fight or team negotiate, and make sure you're subscribed because we're about to hit the climax and you do not want to miss it." Now, back to the story. But even as Roman spoke, Elara felt the weight of every life in this fortress pressing down on her. Children who would die. Families who would be torn apart. A kingdom that would burn. All because of her. She slipped away from the council chamber, her mind racing. There had to be another way. Some path between surrender and war that no one had seen yet. The baby kicked insistently, and that warmth spread through her again, that certainty. "Trust." "Trust what?" she whispered desperately. "Trust who?" Then it hit her. The moon's voice had said, "The truth will break you both before it saves you." What if the truth wasn't about the child's origin? What if it was about what the child was? Elara ran to the library, her hands shaking as she pulled down the Book of Bloodlines. She flipped through pages frantically until she found it, the passage Roman had shown her. "The child of no name shall carry the blood of two lines, one lost, one forbidden. Through them, the moon shall choose a new path, and the old laws shall break or bind anew." Break or bind anew. Not destroy. Renew. Her heart raced as understanding crystallized. The child wasn't meant to tear down the separation between divine and mortal. It was meant to heal it. To create a new covenant between the gods and wolves. But only if both sides chose to accept it. She had to make them see. Elara found Roman on the battlements as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. "I know what we have to do," she said breathlessly. He turned to her, exhaustion and determination warring in his expression. "Tell me." "We don't fight. And we don't surrender." She grabbed his hands. "We offer them a choice. A new covenant." "Elara, I don't understand. The child isn't a weapon or a threat. It's a bridge. Between their world and ours." Her words tumbled out in a rush. The old laws separated gods and wolves because they feared what would happen if they mixed. But what if this child proves that fear wrong? What if we offer to share the child, raise it between both worlds, teach it both ways? Roman's eyes widened. "You want to give them partial custody of our child?" "I want to give them a stake in our child's survival." She squeezed his hands. "Right now, they see the baby as a violation. But if we make them part of its life, if we show them we're not trying to steal divine power but share it, maybe, just maybe, they'll choose peace over war." "That's insane." "It's the only chance we have." Her voice broke. "Please, Roman. Let me try." He stared at her for a long moment, conflict raging in his silver eyes. Then he cupped her face and kissed her forehead. "If we do this, we do it together," he said. "No surrender. No sacrifice. Just partnership." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Then let's go change some ancient laws." They rode out under a white flag as the sun touched the horizon. Celine met them in the center of the valley, her expression wary. "Have you come to surrender?" "We've come to negotiate," Roman said. "There is nothing to negotiate. There's everything to negotiate." Elara dismounted, her hand resting on her belly. "You say this child is an abomination. I say it's a gift. A chance to heal what was broken centuries ago." Celine's glowing eyes narrowed. "Explain." "The gods and wolves went to war because of fear and mistrust. You separated yourselves to prevent another catastrophe. But separation didn't heal anything, it just delayed the inevitable." Elara took a breath. "This child carries both bloodlines. It's proof that divine and mortal can coexist. But only if you let it." "Let it?" Celine's voice was cold. "You speak as if we have a choice." "You do." Roman stepped forward. "You can destroy this child and prove that the old fears were justified. Or you can help us raise it, teach it, shape it into a bridge between our worlds instead of a weapon." "And why would we trust you?" "Because you don't have to trust just us." Elara's voice was steady now, certain. "You'd be part of the child's life. Part of its education, its upbringing. You'd have a voice in how it learns to use its power. We're not asking you to give up control. We're asking you to share it." Celine was silent, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she turned to the army behind her. The figures in white cloaks dismounted and approached, forming a circle around them. Elara's heart hammered as she realized these were the Moon's Council, the divine beings who'd once walked among wolves before the separation. One of them stepped forward, an ancient-looking man with eyes like liquid silver. "You would allow us to influence the child's path?" he asked. "Even knowing we might shape it in ways you disagree with?" "Yes," Elara said without hesitation. "Because the alternative is war, death, more separation. And I refuse to let this child be born into a world where love and trust are impossible." The ancient studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to Roman. "And you, Alpha King? You would share your heir with those who once threatened to destroy it." Roman's jaw was tight, but his voice was firm. "If it means peace. If it means my child grows up in a world where gods and wolves don't fear each other, then yes." Silence stretched across the valley. Then the ancient began to smile. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "the moon was wiser than we knew." He raised his hand, and the silver light of the moon poured down, bathing them all in its glow. "We accept your offer, mortals. The child shall be raised between worlds. And when it comes of age, it shall choose whether to renew the covenant between divine and mortal, or let it remain broken." Relief crashed over Elara so powerfully she nearly collapsed. Roman caught her, holding her steady. "Thank you," she whispered. The ancient's smile softened. "Thank you, child, for seeing what we could not. That sometimes the greatest courage is not in fighting, but in trusting." As the divine army began to withdraw, Celine approached one last time. "The child will be powerful," she warned. "More than you can imagine. There will be those who fear it still, who will try to use it or destroy it. Then we'll protect it," Roman said simply. "Together." Celine nodded slowly. "Then perhaps there is hope for us all." She mounted her horse and rode away, the silver army following like a receding tide. And as the sun finally set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Elara felt the baby move again. Not restless this time. Peaceful. Like it knew the worst was over. Peace with the divine army didn't mean peace within the kingdom. The fortress erupted in chaos the moment Roman and Elara returned. Half the pack celebrated the averted war, while Dane's faction seethed with rage and accusations. "You made a deal with the enemy." Dane's voice thundered through the throne room as the emergency council reconvened. "You've given them access to our future heir, handed them power over the northern kingdom." "I gave them a partnership," Roman corrected, his voice cold as winter steel. "Something you clearly don't understand." "Partnership." Dane laughed bitterly. "You've enslaved us to divine whim. When that child comes of age, the gods will control it. Control us. Or the child will be the bridge that finally heals centuries of bloodshed." Roman's eyes blazed silver. But you never wanted peace, did you, Dane? You wanted an excuse to seize power. The room went deathly silent. Dane's expression flickered, just for a moment, and Elara saw it. Guilt. Calculation. Fear. You're deflecting, Dane said, but his voice had lost its conviction. This isn't about me, isn't it? Roman descended from his throne, every step deliberate, predatory. Let me ask you something, Dane. How did the rogues get past our borders? How did they know exactly where Elara's chambers were? How did assassins infiltrate a fortress that stood for 500 years? Dane's face paled. I don't know what you're. Mara confessed. Roman's words dropped like stones. Last night, when she realized she was going to die in that cell anyway. She told me everything. The blood drained from Dane's face. She wasn't working alone, Roman continued, his voice deadly quiet. She had help from someone in my inner circle. Someone who wanted Elara dead so badly they were willing to burn my kingdom to make it happen. He stopped inches from Dane. Someone who thought if the divine army destroyed us, they could step in as the savior and take my throne. That's a lie. Is it? Roman's hand shot out, gripping Dane's throat and lifting him off the ground. Dane's feet kicked uselessly as gasps rippled through the council. Then explain why Mara had letters in her cell. Letters bearing your seal. Letters detailing payment to rogue packs. Letters ordering the deaths of anyone who stood in your way. Dane's eyes bulged, his hands clawing at Roman's grip. You didn't just betray me, Roman growled, his wolf fully surfaced now. You betrayed every wolf in this kingdom. You put them all at risk because you were too ambitious and too cowardly to challenge me honorably. Roman, Elara's voice cut through the rage. Not loud, but steady. Don't. Roman's eyes snapped to hers, wild and feral. If you kill him, you prove him right, she said quietly, stepping forward. That you're ruled by emotion instead of justice. That you've been compromised by love. She held his gaze. Don't give him that satisfaction. Roman's chest heaved. For a moment, Elara thought he wouldn't listen. Then, slowly, he lowered Dane to the ground. Dane collapsed, gasping, his hand at his throat. You're right, Roman said, his voice rough. Justice, not vengeance. He turned to his guards. Arrest him. Strip him of his rank and title. He'll stand trial before the full council for treason, conspiracy, and attempted murder. His gaze swept the room. And anyone else who conspired with him will face the same. 3 other wolves stepped forward immediately, members of Dane's inner circle who'd been complicit in the plot. The guards seized them all. As they were dragged away, Dane's eyes found Elara, burning with hatred. This isn't over. That child you carry is still a curse. And when it's born, Ethan interrupted, stepping forward with a contingent of Roman's most loyal warriors. It will be protected by every wolf who understands what the Alpha King did for us. He chose peace over pride, partnership over power. And that makes him the greatest king we've ever had. A roar of agreement rose from Roman's loyalists, louder than Dane's faction had ever been. The tide had turned. The trials lasted 3 days. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. And one by one, Dane's conspirators were convicted of treason. Some were exiled, others imprisoned. Dane himself was sentenced to life in the deepest dungeon, stripped of his wolf and forbidden from ever shifting again, a fate worse than death for most wolves. But Roman showed mercy where he could. Those who'd followed Dane out of fear rather than malice were given a chance to swear new oaths of loyalty. Most took it. By the end of the 3rd day, the kingdom had stabilized. Fractured, yes, but healing. And through it all, Elara felt the baby growing stronger. The birth came 2 months later, on a night when the moon was full and the stars seemed closer than usual. Elara's water broke just after sunset. Roman was at her side immediately, his face pale with a fear she'd never seen before. I'm fine, she gasped through the first contraction. Just get the healers. I'm not leaving you. Roman. I'm not leaving. So he stayed. Through every contraction, every scream, every moment of agony, he held her hand and whispered promises in her ear. "You're so strong. You're doing so well. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." The healers worked frantically, but the birth was difficult. The baby was larger than expected, stronger, and there were complications, blood loss, tearing, moments when Elara's vision went dark and she wasn't sure she'd survive. But then she heard it. A cry. Strong and clear and utterly perfect. "It's a boy," the healer announced, tears streaming down her face. "A healthy, beautiful boy." Roman's hand tightened on Elara's. "You did it. Gods, Elara, you did it." The healer brought the baby over, wrapped in soft cloth, and placed him in Elara's arms. Elara looked down at her son and felt her entire world realign. He was perfect. Dark hair like Roman's. Eyes that shifted between silver and starlight as if they couldn't decide which world they belonged to. Tiny fingers that gripped her thumb with surprising strength. "Hello, little one," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We've been waiting for you." Roman leaned over, his expression raw with emotion, and gently touched the baby's cheek. "He's beautiful. His voice broke. He's ours." The baby's eyes opened fully then, focusing on Roman, and something passed between them. Recognition. Acceptance. Bond. "He knows you," Elara whispered. "He knows you're his father." Roman's eyes filled with tears. "I know him too. I don't know how, but I do. He laughed shakily. "He's mine. Completely. I can feel it." "Stop. Just stop for a second, because I need you all to feel this moment. After everything they went through, the betrayal, the war, the doubt, they're finally here. Together. With their son." Drop a heart in the comments if you're emotional right now and make sure you're subscribed. Okay, I'm crying. Let's continue. The Divine Council arrived 3 days later. Selene and the Ancient Elder came alone this time, without an army, as guests rather than invaders. They found Elara in the nursery, rocking the baby while Roman stood guard nearby, looking like he'd fight the gods themselves if they so much as breathed wrong near his son. "Peace, Alpha King," the Ancient Elder said, holding up his hands. "We come only to honor our agreement." Elara stood carefully, the baby cradled against her chest. "Would you like to meet him?" Selene stepped forward, her glowing eyes softening as they landed on the child. "What have you named him?" "Orion," Elara said. "After the constellation. A bridge between earth and sky. A fitting name." The Ancient Elder approached slowly, reverently, and when he looked at the baby, his expression transformed into something like wonder. "He is extraordinary. I can feel the power in him already. Divine and mortal, perfectly balanced." "He's also just a baby," Roman said, his voice edged with warning. "Not a weapon. Not a tool. A child. We understand." Selene's voice was gentler than Elara had ever heard it. "And we will honor that. When he is old enough, we will teach him about his divine heritage. But until then, he is yours to raise and love." She reached out slowly, asking permission with her eyes, and Elara, after a glance at Roman, nodded. Selene's finger brushed Orion's tiny palm, and the baby's hand closed around it. Silver light pulsed, gentle, warm, and Selene gasped. "He's already choosing," she whispered. "Already building bridges. I can feel his soul reaching out to both worlds, trying to understand them." She looked up at Elara with something like awe. "You were right, child of no pack. He is not a weapon. He is hope." The Ancient Elder placed his hand on the baby's head, and silver runes briefly glowed across Orion's skin before fading. "A blessing," he explained. "Protection against those who would harm him. Divine and mortal both." He met Roman's eyes. "Your son will face many trials, Alpha King. But he will not face them alone." "No," Roman said firmly, his hand finding Elara's. "He won't." As the Divine Council departed, promising to return when Orion was older, Elara and Roman stood together in the nursery, watching their son sleep. Do you think we did the right thing? Elara asked quietly, sharing him with them. I think we did the only thing that gave him a chance at a real life. Roman's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. A life where he's not hunted or feared, but loved and accepted by both worlds. And us. She looked up at him. What happens to us? Roman's eyes softened. We keep doing what we've been doing. Loving each other. Protecting our family. Building a kingdom where bonds matter more than prophecies. The prophecy said claiming a mate would destroy your kingdom. It did destroy it. Roman's smile was small but genuine. It destroyed the old kingdom, the one built on fear and isolation. And in its place, we're building something better. Something worth dying for. He kissed her forehead. Something worth living for. Elara leaned into him, feeling complete for the first time in her life. She'd been marked as impure, cast out, hunted, and nearly killed. But she'd also been claimed, loved, protected, and given a family she never thought she'd have. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For whispering those words in the council chamber. For claiming the baby as yours. For saving my life when no one else would. Roman pulled back slightly, cupping her face in his hands. You saved mine too, Elara. You gave me a reason to break the prophecy. A reason to fight. A reason to live instead of just survive. His voice roughened. You're my mate. My queen. And I will spend every day for the rest of my life proving you were worth every risk. She kissed him then, deep and full of promise, and the baby stirred in his cradle, making a soft sound that might have been contentment. And in that moment, Elara knew with absolute certainty. The moon had chosen wisely after all. 5 years later. The Northern Kingdom had changed. Where once there had been walls built on fear and isolation, now there were open gates and bridges between worlds. Divine emissaries walked the corridors of the fortress alongside wolves, sharing knowledge, magic, and stories of ages past. The old prophecies hadn't been destroyed, they'd been rewritten. And at the center of it all was a child with silver eyes and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. Orion was 5 years old now, and he was everything Elara and Roman had hoped for and more. He had his father's strength and his mother's compassion. He could shift into a wolf pup with midnight fur, and he could call down moonlight with a gesture. He asked questions constantly, about everything, everyone, the world and the worlds beyond it. And he was loved. Not just by his parents, but by the entire kingdom. Wolves who'd once feared what he represented now watched him play in the courtyard and saw only a curious, kind-hearted boy. The Divine Council, true to their word, visited regularly to teach him about his heritage, but they never tried to take him away or control him. They'd learned, as everyone had, that Orion belonged to no one world. He belonged to himself. Elara stood at the window of their private chambers, watching Roman train with Orion in the courtyard below. Her hand rested on the swell of her belly 6 months along with their second child, a daughter this time. Roman had cried when the healer confirmed it. Actual tears of joy. Another one, he'd whispered, his hand splayed across her stomach. Another miracle. This pregnancy had been different. No curses. No divine intervention. No mysteries. Just 2 people who loved each other creating new life together. It felt like the ultimate victory. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Come in, she called. Mara entered, older now, her silver hair fully white, but her amber eyes as sharp as ever. She'd been released from the dungeons 2 years ago, after Roman determined that while she'd betrayed them, her intentions had been to protect the kingdom, not destroy it. She'd served her sentence with dignity, and when offered exile or servitude, she'd chosen to stay and atone by serving Orion as his tutor. It had been awkward at first. But over time, Elara had come to understand that Mara's love for the kingdom had been twisted by fear, the same fear that had driven so many of their enemies. And fear, they'd learned, could be healed. Slowly. Painfully. But healed. Lady Elara, Mara said with a small bow. She insisted on formality still, even though Elara had asked her not to. The representatives from the Eastern Pax have arrived. They're requesting an audience. Elara smiled. Tell them we'll receive them in an hour. And Mara, yes, my lady. Thank you for everything you've done for Orion. He adores you. Mara's expression softened, something that rarely happened. He is a remarkable child. You and the Alpha King should be very proud. We are. After Mara left, Elara made her way down to the courtyard. Orion spotted her immediately and came running, his small wolf form shifting mid-stride until a giggling boy crashed into her legs. Mama, did you see? I almost beat Papa. Almost? Roman's voice carried across the courtyard, amused. He approached with that familiar, confident stride, though there was a softness to him now that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Fatherhood had changed him, gentled him in the ways that mattered while keeping the steel beneath. You definitely beat me, pup. I'm getting old. You're not old. Orion protested. You're the strongest wolf in the whole kingdom. Second strongest, Roman corrected, ruffling his son's dark hair. You're going to surpass me one day. Probably soon. Orion beamed, then turned his silver eyes to Elara. Is the baby kicking, Mama? Can I feel? Of course. She knelt down carefully, and Orion placed his small hand on her belly. The baby kicked right on cue, and Orion's eyes went wide with wonder. She knows I'm here. She does, Elara said softly. She can't wait to meet her big brother. I'm gonna teach her everything, Orion declared. How to shift, how to hunt, how to talk to the moon. Maybe we start with walking, Roman interjected, lifting his son into his arms. And letting her sleep through the night. Orion giggled, wrapping his arms around Roman's neck. Papa, will the Eastern wolves be scared of me? The question hit Elara's heart like a blade. Orion had started noticing lately the way some wolves still looked at him with wariness, the whispers that followed him sometimes. Roman's expression grew serious, and he set Orion down so they were eye level. Some might be at first. Because you're different. Because you're powerful in ways they don't understand. But you know what? What? Their fear is their problem, not yours. You don't have to make yourself smaller to make others comfortable. You just have to be yourself, kind, brave, and true. And eventually, they'll see what we see, that you're not something to fear. You're something to celebrate. Orion nodded solemnly, processing this. Then, can we celebrate with cake? Roman laughed, a full, genuine sound that still made Elara's heart skip. After we meet with the Eastern delegates, yes. We can celebrate with cake. Can I just say how much I love this family? From the darkness they started into this beautiful, imperfect, real life they've built together. It's everything. Drop a comment telling me your favorite character from this story, and if you've made it this far without subscribing, what are you even doing? Hit that button. We're almost at the end, and I want you here for every moment. Let's keep going. The meeting with the Eastern delegates went better than expected. They'd come seeking alliance. Their territory had been plagued by rogue attacks, and they'd heard about the Northern Kingdom's newfound peace and prosperity. They wanted to learn how Roman had united his fractured pack, how he'd negotiated with the Divine Council, how he'd turned enemies into allies. Roman told them the truth. I stopped ruling by fear and started leading with trust. I stopped seeing differences as threats and started seeing them as strengths. And I learned that sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is choose love over tradition. His eyes found Elara's across the room, and she felt that familiar warmth, the bond between them stronger now than ever. One of the Eastern wolves, a young woman named Ivy, asked hesitantly, and the child? The one they say carries divine blood? Is it true? It's true, Elara answered before Roman could. My son, Orion, carries both mortal and divine heritage. And he's not a weapon or a curse. He's just a boy who happens to be extraordinary. Can we meet him? Ivy asked, her expression more curious than fearful. Elara glanced at Roman, who nodded. Moments later, Orion was brought in, cleaned up from training, dressed in formal clothes that he clearly found uncomfortable. But when he saw the Eastern delegates, he didn't hide behind his parents. He stepped forward and bowed, just as Mara had taught him. "Welcome to the Northern Kingdom," he said, his voice clear and confident. "I'm Orion. It's nice to meet you." The delegates stared at him, this small child with silver eyes and an otherworldly presence, and Elara held her breath. Then Ivy smiled and knelt down to his level. "It's nice to meet you too, Orion. I've heard you're very brave." Orion's face lit up. "I am. Want to see me shift?" "Orion," Roman said warningly, but there was amusement in his voice. "Maybe later," Ivy said diplomatically. "But I'd love to hear about your training." And just like that, the tension broke. By the end of the evening, the Eastern delegates had signed an alliance treaty, and several of them had asked if their own children could train with Orion when they were older, to learn from a child who represented the future rather than the past. Progress, Elara thought. Slow, imperfect, but real. That night, after Orion was asleep and the fortress had quieted, Elara and Roman walked through the gardens under the full moon. "Do you ever miss it?" Elara asked quietly. "The way things were before? When your life was simpler?" Roman was silent for a moment, considering. Then, "No. Never. Not even a little? When you didn't have to negotiate with gods and raise a divine child and rebuild an entire kingdom's ideology. Not even a little." He stopped and turned to face her, his hands framing her face with infinite gentleness. "You want to know what I remember about my life before you? Emptiness. Duty without purpose. Power without meaning. I was existing, Elara, not living. And now? Now I wake up next to the woman I love. I train with a son who makes me laugh every day. I'm building a kingdom where my children won't have to hide who they are or what they can do." His thumb brushed her cheek. "Now I have everything I never knew I needed." Tears pricked her eyes. "I love you. So much it terrifies me sometimes." "Good." His smile was soft, intimate. "Because I love you more than prophecies, more than kingdoms, more than my own life. And I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over." He leaned in, his forehead touching hers. "You are my choice, Elara. Every single day. And you always will be." She kissed him then, slow and sweet and full of 5 years of love that had only grown stronger. When they pulled apart, the moon seemed brighter somehow. Approving. "The moon's voice never came back," Elara said suddenly. "I always wondered why. Maybe she didn't need to." Roman's gaze lifted to the sky. "Maybe we proved whatever she needed us to prove. That love is stronger than curses? That mortals and gods aren't so different after all. We all want the same things: safety, connection, meaning. We just go about it in different ways." He looked back at her. "And sometimes it takes someone brave enough to build a bridge to remind us of that." Elara placed her hand on her belly, feeling their daughter move. "Do you think she'll be like Orion? Divine and mortal?" "I think she'll be exactly who she's meant to be. And we'll love her just the same." Roman's hand covered hers. "No matter what challenges come, we'll face them together. As a family. Promise?" "I promise." He sealed it with a kiss. "Always." 6 months later. The baby girl arrived on a spring morning when the flowers were blooming and the air smelled like new beginnings. Her name was Luna, for the moon that had brought them together, and for the hope she represented. Unlike Orion, Luna showed no signs of divine power. She was fully mortal, fully wolf, and absolutely perfect. "Maybe the moon knew we needed balance," Roman said, cradling his daughter with the same wonder he'd shown with Orion. "One child to bridge worlds. One child to keep us grounded in this one." Orion, now 5.5 and utterly smitten with his baby sister, leaned over to peer at her. "She's so small, Papa. You were small once too." "No, I wasn't," Orion said seriously. "I was born powerful." Elara laughed, exhausted but happier than she'd ever been. "You were born tiny and loud, my love. Just like your sister." As if on cue, Luna began to fuss, and Elara took her from Roman to nurse. Orion climbed onto the bed beside her, careful not to jostle his mother, and watched his sister with protective devotion. "I'll keep her safe," he announced. "Forever and ever." "I know you will," Elara said softly. Roman sat on the other side of the bed, his family gathered around him, and felt something he'd never experienced in all his years as Alpha King. Complete peace. Not because there were no challenges left, there would always be challenges. Not because the world was perfect, it would never be perfect. But because he had something worth fighting for. Something worth protecting. Something worth living for. He had his mate. His children. His pack. He had love. And in the end, that was the only prophecy that mattered. Epilogue. 10 years later. The Moon Festival had become an annual tradition in the Northern Kingdom, a celebration of the covenant between divine and mortal, and a reminder that bridges could be built even between the most unlikely worlds. Orion, now 15 and already taller than Roman, stood on the dais beside his parents as they addressed the gathered crowd. Luna, 10 years old and every bit as fierce as her mother, stood on Roman's other side, waving to the wolves who'd come from all corners of the realm to celebrate. 10 years ago, Roman's voice carried across the courtyard. This kingdom was fractured by fear. We believed that differences divided us. That power meant isolation. That love was a weakness to be avoided. He looked at Elara, and the love in his eyes was as fierce as it had been the day he'd claimed her in that council chamber. But a wise woman taught me that love isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength we have. And a brave child showed us that bridges don't make us vulnerable, they make us stronger. Orion stepped forward, his silver eyes gleaming with confidence and kindness. My father once told me that I don't have to make myself smaller to make others comfortable. And I want to tell all of you the same thing, especially those of you who feel different, who feel like you don't belong. His voice rang with conviction. You do belong. Your differences aren't flaws, they're gifts. And this kingdom, this world, is better because you're in it. The crowd erupted in cheers. And high above, hidden in the silver light of the full moon, the moon's voice smiled. She had chosen well. They all had. Elara stood with Roman on the balcony that night, long after the festival had ended and their children were asleep. "Do you think we did it?" she asked quietly. "Change the world." Roman pulled her close, his arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "I think we changed our world. And sometimes that's enough." Is it though? There are still wolves who fear Orion. Still territories that refuse the covenant. Still progress being made every day, Roman interrupted gently. Rome wasn't built in a day, love. Neither is a new world. But we started something. And our children will continue it. And their children after them. He turned her to face him. That's how real change happens. One brave choice at a time. Elara looked up at the moon, full and bright, and watching over them as she always had. "Thank you," she whispered to the sky. "For the curse that brought me here. For the child that saved us both. For the love that changed everything." The moon seemed to glow brighter, as if in response. And in that moment, Elara understood the final truth. She had been marked as impure, dishonored, unwanted. But she had also been chosen. By the moon. By fate. By the Alpha King who had whispered those life-saving words in a moment of impossible courage. "Claim the baby as mine." That whisper had changed everything. It had saved her life, yes. But more than that, it had proven that sometimes the greatest acts of love begin with the smallest words. And sometimes, the most powerful magic in any world isn't divine power or ancient prophecy. It's the choice to love when the world says you shouldn't. To trust when everything tells you to fear. To build bridges when everyone else builds walls. That was the real magic. And it would echo through generations long after they were gone. And there it is. The complete journey. From a woman marked as impure in a council chamber to a queen standing beside her alpha king, with two beautiful children and a kingdom transformed by love. Thank you for taking this journey with me. From the moment Roman whispered, "Claim the baby as mine," to this final scene of peace and hope, you were here for every twist, every fear, every triumph. Tell me in the comments, what was your favorite moment from this entire story? Was it the first meeting? The bond snapping into place? The negotiation with the Divine Council? The birth? Let me know. I genuinely love hearing your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. Because we're just getting started and there are so many more stories to tell. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. I love knowing that this story reached you, wherever you are in the world. Until next time, keep believing in love that defies prophecy, keep building bridges instead of walls, and keep choosing courage over fear. You are loved. You are valued. And your story matters. See you in the next one, loves.